In the rain, a slave auction begins behind sealed doors. Under the harsh light, a battered young girl is dragged out as the next item, while the crowd mocks her looks and sneers at how low the auction house has fallen. The bidders laugh openly, and one man jeers that no one would even waste 10 silver on her. Then, a hooded woman cuts through the ridicule with an unbelievable bid of 600,000 silver. The room bursts into disbelief, but the bound girl stays silent as the men bitterly demand why anyone would pay that much for someone they call worthless. When one bidder insults the purchase again, the hooded woman crushes his arm in an instant, leaving him screaming in panic. Fear spreads across the hall, and the hooded buyer coolly says the girl has a far greater use. Locking her gaze on the girl, the woman declares that this child has value. Beside another hooded companion, she says the girl can still serve their purpose, and the captive can only stare back in stunned confusion. Outside in the storm, the night shifts into a brutal departure through the rain. The silence stretches, and the pressure only tightens. Nothing is settled, and the unease keeps rising. The exchange leaves both sides shaken long after it ends. The weight of that moment refuses to lift. The tension keeps moving forward with no release. The air remains charged, even through the silence. The moment hangs there with no sign of relief. The scene stays locked in uneasy stillness. The silence stretches, and the pressure only tightens. The tension drags on, unchanged and harder to escape. The girl goes rigid in shock as two maid-like attendants all of a sudden set an extravagant feast before her, leaving her utterly lost. From across the long table, she hesitantly tries to understand the bizarre situation closing in around her. Two girls calmly tell her she does not need to hold back and can eat as much as she wants, then wonder if shock has stolen her appetite. Their words hit her all at once, and all she can do is tremble in disbelief. Shaking uncontrollably, she reaches for the food as hunger and fear pull at her from both sides. The moment she starts eating, tears spill out and she sobs through every desperate bite. A wild voice all of a sudden cuts in with mocking delight, asking if this is the day's catch and jolting her all over again. The two girls cheerfully congratulate each other, while an eerie laugh behind them makes everything feel even stranger. A beast-like woman steps in and declares that not a single decent human had come to the auction house. With a cruel grin, she says those people had rotten eyes, and because of that, the leftovers ended up in their hands. The tension keeps pressing forward without release. The exchange leaves both sides rattled in its wake. Nothing is resolved, and the unease keeps climbing. The silence between them becomes impossible to ignore. The scene remains trapped in uneasy stillness. The moment hangs there with no hint of relief. The tension drags on, unchanged and harder to escape. The silence stretches, and the pressure only deepens. The weight of that instant refuses to fade. The silence between them becomes impossible to ignore. The horned woman calmly explains that the demon king of this world was defeated by heroes 16 years earlier, and that his castle was destroyed at the same time. As she leads the stunned girl to the hall, she adds that this place somehow survived apart from the demon king's castle, leaving the girl even more lost. She then reveals that this was once where the late demon king lived with his aides and treasured family, deepening the shock. At the word father, the girl stops cold as the impossible implication crashes down on her. The women look down at her and bluntly confirm that they are the daughters of the demon king, turning her confusion into alarm. A purple-haired daughter named Ai brushes off the need for so much explanation, showing little patience for the girl's reaction. Another daughter, Silpha, lightly tells A not to be so stiff, making the mood feel even more unsettling. Stella appears next, watching with a quiet smile as the overwhelmed girl struggles to keep up. Gloria grins and says it is fine since they had all been bored for so long, making their interest feel even more ominous. Surrounded by them, the shaken girl can only repeat that they are the daughters of the demon king as the truth finally starts to sink in. The tension keeps pressing forward without release. The moment hangs there with no hint of relief. The tension drags on, unchanged and harder to escape. The exchange leaves both sides rattled in its wake. Nothing is resolved, and the unease keeps climbing. The weight of that instant refuses to fade. The tension keeps pressing forward without release. The moment hangs there with no hint of relief. The silence between them becomes impossible to ignore. The exchange leaves both sides rattled in its wake. She remembers living quietly with her parents in a small home deep in the forest, far from the royal capital. She remembers that her father and mother were gentle people who never harmed anyone, which makes what followed feel even crueler. Then one day, she says, someone killed her parents and shattered that peaceful life in an instant. She explains that she had only stepped away briefly to fetch water, and when she returned, their bodies were covered in wounds and burned black as if struck by lightning. Through tears, she remembers her father using his last breath to tell her that hatred is always born from hatred first. Even so, the world felt too cruel for her, and she chose to cling to those words while living alone. No matter where she went, people persecuted and rejected her simply for being herself, and she could not understand why. Driven to the edge of survival, she eventually ended up crouching in an alley and drinking filthy water just to stay alive. She admits that by the time she arrived here, she had already given up on living until she was brought into a warm room, fed well, and shown unexpected kindness. Looking at the sisters before her, she says their beauty and compassion made her feel valuable at last, and that even someone like her could still be useful in the end. With tears in her eyes and a grateful smile, the young woman pleads with them to let her stay and accept her completely. The others react in stunned disbelief, noting that no one had ever willingly asked for that before. A dark-haired girl with a tail decides she will stop holding back, her expression turning serious in an instant. She lunges forward without warning, while the young woman keeps smiling through the tension as the sudden move rushes in. The attacker stops cold when a blinding force erupts before she can reach her target. Outside the building, a powerful beam of light blasts upward into the sky, shaking everything around it. The young woman stands trembling at the center of the light, clutching herself as the strange power keeps rising around her. Looking down in alarm, she realizes a mysterious pattern has appeared on her chest and panics at once. The others stare at the mark in astonishment, unable to grasp what has just appeared. The fox-eared woman recognizes it first and declares that the symbol is the Holy Crest. The fox-eared woman begins explaining that the mark is the Holy Crest, and the others recoil at the impossible claim. She explains that the Holy Crest was once bestowed upon the great sage Sol Rhine, whose power was said to surpass even the hero Freed who defeated the Demon King. As the crest shines, she reasons that it reacts to demonic beings and that their magic must have triggered it, while noting that the girl herself seems unaware she ever carried it. The terrified young woman notices the light around her chest fading, but the stares around her only make the panic worse. The fox-eared woman narrows her eyes and says the girl's identity is finally coming into focus. She then declares with absolute certainty that the trembling girl is the child of the great sage Sol Rhine. The young woman freezes in confusion and repeats the name in shock, realizing that it is supposed to be her father's name. A dark-haired woman observes that the girl did not even know her own father was a sage, meaning he had hidden the truth from her. The others push the implication further, saying that being a great sage can lead to only one conclusion. They conclude that her father was the very one who killed their own father, the Demon King, and the room's shock hardens into resentment. One girl bitterly admits that they were the ones with dark intentions, while another says having the child of a great sage before them might actually be a stroke of luck. Their mood shifts sharply as one of them excitedly declares that the great sage's child could probably be the key to restoring their strength. A dark-haired girl all of a sudden pulls Ai close and stops her, leaving Ai flustered and overwhelmed by the abrupt contact. Another woman right away demands to know what Sulfa is doing, while Ai sits there red-faced and visibly shaken. Ai nervously asks whether they truly understand the situation they are in, clearly rattled by how serious everything has become. The dark-haired girl explains that more than 10 years have passed since their father was slain by the hero, and says human arrogance has only worsened with every year. She goes on to say that humans mercilessly destroyed their lands, including lush forests overflowing with mana and ancient sacred temples that had stood for centuries. She adds that even harmless creatures with no magical abilities were brutally hunted down, and warns that it is only a matter of time before humans find this place as well. With a calm but chilling expression, she confirms that this is exactly the reality before them. The group stands under crushing tension as the conclusion settles over them that humans have driven them into a corner. The sisters fell quiet, trading uneasy looks as their hatred for humans began to crack around Ai. One sister murmured that if their father had lived into this age of slavery, he never would have tolerated such cruelty. And as she looked at Ai, she realized this child was, in a painful way, no different from them. Ai could only stare back, confused, when they called her another victim of foolish humans. Then the pale-haired sister drew every gaze and said she had a proposal. The dark-haired elf woman and the beast-eared girl reacted at once, stunned, asking if that proposal was really acceptable. Stella said calmly that she had no objection and even added that it sounded worthwhile, which only left the dark-haired elf woman more flustered. The beast-eared girl reluctantly gave in too, saying that if everyone else agreed, then she supposed she could accept it. The pale-haired sister turned back to Ai, and the others were reminded that her feelings still came first. The dark-haired elf woman let out a tense breath and admitted that once the majority had decided, resisting alone would change nothing. Stella declared the matter settled, then said there was something important they needed to do first. She all of a sudden stepped close to Ai and inspected her at close range, leaving Ai frozen in confusion. The others watched in shock, unable to tell what Stella was doing. Then, without warning, Stella forcefully pulled a dark mass out of Ai, and Ai jolted back as it ripped free. I cried out in panic that something had come out of her body, while the smoke-like black presence shrieked above them. Stella cast a restraining spell, and chains of magic shot out to lock the dark entity in place. Holding the creature there, Stella calmly explained that what they were looking at was a curse. I trembled and asked in disbelief if that curse had really been inside her. The dark-haired elf woman explained that I had already said humans persecuted her for no reason, and she had believed that suffering was hopelessly meaningless. Stella revealed the curse's effect, saying it made its victim the one target of resentment from everyone around them. The witch-like woman said that even demons found a curse like this repulsive, making the source of Ai's suffering feel even more twisted. Shaken, I realized her torment might have been caused by the curse all along, and wondered who could have done something so cruel. As the sealed curse thrashed wildly, the witch-like woman said that although it was only a minor curse, it carried immense power, and she linked it to Ai's story about her parents being struck down by lightning. She then stated that only one person in the world could use that lightning spell. That answer was Freed, the hero, and the revelation crashed down with terrifying force. I froze in disbelief, her eyes widening as the accusation shattered everything she thought she knew. I insisted there was no way Hiro-sama would do something like that, but the others admitted they could not be certain either. The witch-like woman then urged Ai to think carefully and decide for herself. She told Ai to think about the one who had pushed her all the way into despair. Trembling, Ai admitted she still did not know if everything had truly been caused by the curse, and she no longer knew how to see the people who had tormented her until now. I realized she had been suppressing those feelings the whole time, because her father had taught her never to hate anyone. But even then, I broke down and confessed she could never forgive whoever had killed her father and mother. She steadied herself and declared that her hatred would remain, even if the culprit truly was Hiro-sama. The witch-like woman smiled, deciding that Ai's answer had settled everything. She declared that they intended to reclaim their territory and that the hero would surely stand in their way. She then made it clear that this hero was now Ai's enemy too. Turning to Ai, the witch-like woman directly asked for her strength. Ai could only stare in shock as the women named her their new demon lord. The title landed so all of a sudden that all Ai could do was repeat demon lord in stunned disbelief. Left speechless, I stood frozen as the weight of their proposal began to sink in. I recoiled in panic and insisted there was no way she could ever become a demon lord. Shaken and sweating, I wondered what someone like her could possibly do as demon lord, then faltered as another thought surfaced. The witch-like woman casually proposed a difficult group ritual and presented it as the method. Another woman explained that mana grew through careful synchronization, while the others treated it lightly and connected it to what their parents once did in that place, leaving Ai horrified. They insisted that aligning their mana was the first step toward becoming a demon lord, and one of them even suggested adding another girl, making the whole plan feel absurdly overwhelming. Unable to take any more, I let out a flustered scream and admitted she still needed time to prepare herself mentally. 3 years later, a massive surge of power exploded across the area, revealing the result of that long preparation. A hand rose into view as the scene revealed someone emerging with calm control after the violent burst of power. The witch-like woman proudly declared that Ai had nearly mastered the previous demon lord's magic, while another admitted she never expected Ai to grow this strong without the proposed ritual. I answered with quiet confidence that this strength did not belong to her alone. I said she had only come this far because everyone had supported her. She gave special credit to the sisters, and the scene identified her as Yuta Rain, a 14-year-old demon lord apprentice. Later, the quiet mansion at night became the backdrop for her reflection on the years she had spent there. After finishing another exhausting session, I let out a relieved breath as water ran over her. Smiling through her fatigue, she admitted that even now she still had no chance against the sisters and called them unbelievably strong. I reflected that ever since she began living in the mansion as the temporary demon lord, the sisters had trained her almost every day, and Gloria especially excelled at combining fire magic with martial combat. She also acknowledged that Silpha had complete mastery over both ice magic and light magic. I noted that Stella was highly skilled at using shadow magic alongside her alter ego clones, then reminded herself that such overwhelming talent made perfect sense because they were the Demon King's daughters. She added that Ibis was an expert in every kind of elemental and mental magic. As for A1 I admitted she had never received direct training from her, yet over those 3 years she still felt herself growing far stronger. I realized that even now the sisters were still holding back during training, and that thought left her tense and impressed. A horned woman all of a sudden appeared beside A and teased her for looking so serious, startling A badly. The scene identified the woman as Ibis and noted that she could hide her wings and tail. I recalled that the former hero Salrine had once been spoken of as a pleasant man despite being their enemy, and that the demon lord had been in unusually good spirits that day. The demon lord had told everyone to remember that a true warrior must never cling to resentment toward an opponent who fought honorably, no matter the result. He also told the young girls that if they were to become warriors who carried the burden of the demon realm, they had to remember those words. In the mansion grounds, birds scattered overhead as the quiet estate gave way to Ai's memory. In that memory, a younger Ai crashed down beside a tree and groaned in pain after another brutal round of training. Hurt and uneasy, Ai timidly called out to Ai-wan-ni-chan. Ai-wan-ni-chan reminded her that she had wanted time alone together and revealed that this was what she meant by special training, then pointed out that Ai had not done that with her yet. Ai forced a strange smile and asked Ai-wan-ni-chan to go easy on her, already overwhelmed by the idea of this special training. Ai-wan-ni-chan all of a sudden drove the pace even higher, and Ai panicked as she realized the training had turned brutally intense in an instant. When Ai-wan-ni-chan asked whether Ai was truly serious, Ai could only stare back in confused shock. Ai-wan-ni-chan declared that even if the other sisters trusted Ai, she still could not fully trust her and demanded to know whether Ai truly had the resolve to live as the demon lord. Shaken but determined, Ai shouted back that she did have that resolve. Ai-wan-ni-chan answered that 3 years of effort meant nothing without proof and ordered Ai to show her strength, while Ai accepted the challenge without hesitation. Ai-wan-ni-chan unleashed a terrifying dark dragon technique, turning the training ground into a deadly trial and throwing Ai straight into danger. In the middle of Ai's desperate movement, Ai-wan-ni-chan appeared behind her and coldly told her she was too slow. Ai barely reacted before the next attack tore past her, and her fears surged as the pressure of the trial kept rising. Standing calmly amid the destruction, Ai-wan-ni-chan judged that Ai's magic was nowhere near her predecessor's level, cutting deep into Ai's pride with that merciless comparison. Ai staggered away from the ruined training ground, then collapsed against a boulder as the pain finally caught up to her. Breathing hard and covered in dust, Ai admitted to herself that she had not stood a chance against Ai-wan-ni-chan at all. Sitting alone in frustration, Ai cursed her own weakness and felt crushed by how completely she had been overwhelmed. A fox-eared sister lightly remarked that Ai had been completely beaten by Ai again, treating the brutal outcome like something inevitable. Ai accepted that judgment right away and said she lost because she was weak. Another sister agreed and reminded her that real power meant never knowing when to hold back. Still shaken, Ai wondered why Ai-wan-ni-chan had all of a sudden put her through such extreme special training when she had never sparred with her before. A calm older sister suggested that Ai might have been testing Yuta in her own way. Yuta, still rattled, said it had felt less like a test and more like Ai-wan-ni-chan had been trying to kill her, but the others insisted that Ai was simply too blunt and never very straightforward. Even so, Yuta forced out a strained smile as she tried to accept that explanation, despite the fear still clinging to her. The maid removed Yuta's bandage and calmly said it looked finished, while Yuta thanked her for wrapping it. When Yuta admitted with an uneasy laugh that the maid was a little scary, the maid's looming silence only made the moment more tense. As she walked through the garden, Uta all of a sudden caught the sound of someone humming and turned toward it. She then spotted the maid near the mansion, watering the plants while softly humming to herself. Yuta awkwardly wondered where the rest of the maid's body was, then brushed it aside by telling herself she probably should not ask. A horned older sister approached, called Uta by name, and Uta recognized her as Ibis-1E-chan. Ibis said she had heard what happened and apologized, explaining that IE could be mischievous and sometimes failed to notice her own limits, while Yuta insisted it had gone far beyond that. Ibis gently asked Yuta to try to understand Ai, saying that IE struggled in her own way too. She added that Ai was their cute little sister, and said that, despite how she seemed, Ai also had a kind side. Even so, Yuta admitted that all she knew of Ai-wan-ni-chan was someone terrifying when angry, and quietly feared that Ai might truly hate her. Yuta asked Ibis about the maid working in the mansion, and for a split second, Ibis's face revealed a flicker of unease. From across the garden, Yuta pointed toward the mansion staff and asked if they were being controlled by magic. Ibis confirmed it, then cut herself off, as if the rest was too dangerous to say aloud. That night, the mansion sank into moonlit silence, but sleep would not come to Yuta. Lying in bed, she winced as pain spread through her body and admitted that everything still hurt and felt unbearably heavy. She was sure Ai-wan-ni-chan's brutal training earlier that day had to be the cause. But when the crushing weight still refused to fade, panic slipped out and she cried that it was still too heavy. Then a dark figure loomed over her bed, and the room tightened at once. Uta jolted when she realized the figure was Ai-wan-ni-chan standing right beside her. Ai-wan-chan awkwardly apologized for weighing her down and admitted she had secretly borrowed Ibis's clothes, leaving Yuta stunned by the answer. Yuta nervously asked why Ai-wan-ni-chan was in her room, and Ai-wan-ni-chan flusteredly denied any strange intent, only making it sound even stranger. Ai-wan-chan shyly admitted that she wanted to do whatever she could for the demons. She went on to explain that getting close to Yuta would also strengthen demonkind itself, and she had accepted that duty despite her embarrassment. Yuta hesitantly asked whether Iwani-chan actually hated her, and Iwani-chan denied it so fast that Yuta froze. Flustered and forcing the words out, Iwani-chan confessed that she did not dislike Yuta. Iwani-chan admitted that she had once looked down on humans as weak and filthy, while Yuta could only react awkwardly to the bluntness. Even so, Iwani-chan acknowledged that reaching such strength in only 3 years was anything but normal. She openly praised Yuta as amazing and said she fully recognized her ability. Yuta could only stare in silence as Iwani-chan added that both of them still had far to go. Then, A1-chan abruptly challenged Yuta to prove whether she could even accept her, and the pressure crashed in instantly. Iwani-chan started unraveling and insisted Yuta could never accept her, while admitting she already knew she was too strict and too harsh. She spiraled further and complained that even the outfit did not suit her, comparing herself to Ibis and the others until Uta desperately told her to calm down. Embarrassed, Iwani-chan admitted she had forced herself into clothes that did not suit her at all. Then Yuta all of a sudden declared that she knew Iwani-chan was actually kind and cute, and the whole room seemed to stop. Iwani-chan burst in disbelief, insisting someone like her could never fit that image, while panicking over being called cute. Yuta explained that Ibis-Wani-chan had told her the maids in the mansion were powered by Iwani-chan's magic, revealing how much she quietly supported everyone. Iwani-chan awkwardly asked what that had to do with anything, then recalled that the mansion had long been entrusted to familiars created through her magic. Yuta gently remembered that the hands wrapping her bandages had been warm, showing she had felt Iwani-chan's care all along. Yuta admitted that because of her curse, she had always lived surrounded by people's malice, so she knew the difference right away. She concluded that even though Iwani-chan was always hard on her and a little scary, she still recognized the kindness underneath. Yuta firmly said that Iwani-chan was truly kind and cute, and even called her a wonderful woman, leaving Iwani-chan speechless. Iwani-chan nervously asked if those words were really true, and Yuta reassured her at once that they were. Accepting Yuta's sincerity, Iwani-chan decided she had to answer those feelings with proper resolve, which only made Yuta more confused. The moment Iwani-chan acted on that resolve, Yuta was overwhelmed and cried out at the sudden intensity. Iwani-chan explained that both her own mana and Ibis-Wani-chan's mana had already entered Yuta's body, and the revelation stunned her. Iwani-chan wondered when that had happened, and Yuta reminded her it went all the way back to when they first met. Yuta all of a sudden realized that the black mana had already been inside her even then, and the truth hit hard. She then understood that this hidden mana was why she had been able to use the previous Demon King's magic, while Iwani-chan bluntly scolded her for only noticing now. Iwani-chan concluded that 3 years earlier her own mana had simply been too faint for Yuta to detect. Now, but Iwani-chan could clearly feel that mana inside Yuta without any doubt. Yuta felt the mana within her swelling even more, and the sudden surge shook her. Overwhelmed by how intense the exchange had already become, Yuta feared that if it went any further, she might not be able to endure it. Iwani-chan teasingly pressed that since Yuta had caused this reaction, she needed to take responsibility for it. As Yuta started drifting off from the exhausting mana exchange, Iwani-chan quickly warned her not to fall asleep. Yuta snapped back in flustered protest, accusing Iwani-chan of trying to embarrass her, and even lashed out at her height in panic. Iwani-chan dismissed it calmly, saying Yuta was simply exhausted from training and that she would let it slide this time. Iwani-chan then explained that unless they truly connected their hearts, the mana exchange would never reach its full effect, and her gentle smile left the rest hanging. In that quiet moment, Iwani-chan admitted that if it was Yuta, she might be the one capable of leading them. Elsewhere, a fox-eared girl reacted with amused delight at hearing about clearly entertained by what had happened. When the others arrived, they found Iwani-chan and Yuta asleep beside each other, prompting loud teasing, wild misunderstandings, and Iwani-chan's furious denial. Yuta introduced herself as a 14-year-old demon lord apprentice and nervously announced that she would now begin telling her story. While out with her sisters, Yuta was all of a sudden asked which outfit looked better, and the unexpected question left her panicking as they pressed her for an honest answer. As one sister modeled a striking outfit and eagerly asked for judgment, Yuta grew even more flustered while another egged her on from the background. Yuta explained that they had arrived in a town called Chikava, not too far from the demon realm. She revealed that her sisters regularly came to town for information gathering, and the scene shifts into a decision neither can easily undo. Yuta admitted that despite the mission, they often forgot their original purpose, and the others quickly decided to stop by a cute equipment shop anyway. Inside, one sister excitedly presented an ornate piece of armor, claiming it boosted magical power with a red gem and also carried a charm effect as she urged Yuta to look closer. Another sister added that despite its appearance, the equipment was surprisingly durable and still retained its charm effect, leaving Yuta awkward and overwhelmed. Surrounded by the sisters' outfit comparisons and repeated demands for an answer, Yuta became completely overwhelmed, confused, and flustered while shivering under the pressure. In the end, Yuta groaned that even if she was asked to choose, the effect was far too overwhelming for any clear judgment. Yuta finally broke down and desperately admitted that both outfits were cute and lovely, unable to choose at all. After the shopping spree ended, the shop thanked them for buying nearly everything, making it painfully clear how far the sisters had gone. Outside, one sister cheerfully admitted she had bought out the whole store because she was in such a good mood, while another calmly said the mansion's wealth could cover it, and Yuta worried the total had to be absurd. Once they started moving again, the sisters tried to return to their information gathering, but something else pulled them off course right away. The next distraction was tapioca drinks, and while one sister excitedly marveled at how delicious they looked, the other was stunned by the strange black pearls as Yuta chased after them and reminded them about reconnaissance. Watching them get completely absorbed in cute sweets again, Yuta sighed and admitted to herself that her sisters simply could not resist adorable things. As they drank together, Yuta reflected that she usually only saw her sisters as amazing and overwhelming figures, so seeing them act like ordinary girls felt strangely endearing. While walking through town, Yuta listened as locals complained that taxes had been too high lately, especially since a suppression unit had been formed, and she realized she was finally hearing something useful. She then heard even more troubling talk that monsters had grown aggressive in many places and that a new type of monster had reportedly appeared in the forest near the town. When one local muttered that life had almost felt easier when the demon lord was still around, another right away warned that saying something like that could bring trouble from the authorities, and Yuta quietly absorbed attention. Yuta all of a sudden froze as a horrifying scene entered her view, and the shock hit all at once. She saw two men dragging away a crying young girl while one forced her to stay quiet, making it unmistakably a kidnapping. As Yuta recognized them as slave merchants trying to flee with a child, her face turned pale with disbelief and fear. The realization slammed into her chest, and her body locked under the surge of panic. Spotting the carriage nearby, Yuta understood that the men were escaping with the kidnapped girl, and the memory of slave traders shook her to the core. Even while fear overwhelmed her, Yuta forced herself to think that she had to save the child. But the trauma took over, and Yuta realized her whole body was trembling so badly that she could not move. She bitterly admitted that no matter what happened, memories of the time when she was a slave still came rushing back. Yuta felt those old wounds crawling through her body again, as if the cruelty, hatred, and pain from long ago had never truly left. Even so, she struggled against the fear and tried to force herself forward despite the terror pinning her in place. The kidnapped girl fought back in desperation and bit the slave merchant hard, making him cry out in pain. The merchant angrily called her a savage child and threatened to punish her while she cowered in fear. As the girl screamed and begged inwardly for help, the merchant said even damaged captives could still be sold for money. Just as the men prepared to keep going, both of them all of a sudden froze when a dark presence rose behind them. The slave merchants turned in confusion as a cold voice demanded that the human kneel. Yuta stepped forward through black flames and declared that she was the demon lord's apprentice. One merchant mocked the claim and insisted the demon lord had already been defeated, while the other started realizing the danger was real. The sight of the black flames shattered their confidence, and both men recognized the power with rising terror. Yuta warned them to leave and swear never to commit such a crime again, or there would be consequences. The battered girl stared at Yuta in shock and emotion as she tried to speak, overwhelmed by sudden hope. Yuta's fury exploded through black flames as she swore she would never forgive them, and the slave merchants broke into panic screams. When the danger passed, the battered young girl rushed toward Yuta for help, while the others asked if Yuta was all right after seeing those black flames. Yuta realized her trembling had finally stopped, and when concern was shown for her restraints, she insisted she was fine. The battered young girl looked at Yuta in wonder and asked if she was truly a demon lord. Her behavior shifts in a way she cannot fully control. The girl laughed in relief and treated Yuta's claim like a strange joke, lightening the mood after the terror. She innocently added that someone Yuta's size would have to be unbelievably strong and fearsome to become a demon lord, leaving Yuta awkwardly deflated. Even so, the girl reminded Yuta that despite being small, she had still saved her life. The battered young girl then revealed that her father had been a strong soldier, but after investigating rumors of monsters in the forest, he never came back, and she was later left alone until kidnappers took her. With her fear fading and the emotional pressure reaches a breaking point, the battered young girl thanked Yuta with shining eyes, convinced she would become a great demon lord one day. Yuta nervously apologized to Ai-1-chan for blurting out that she was the demon lord, but Ai calmly said no one would believe a criminal story anyway. I then remarked that the girl was surprisingly strong for a human and said she would ask Mei later to place her in an orphanage. Yuta right away brightened and thanked Aiwande-chan for helping the girl. Even then, Yuta hesitated and asked if it was really alright for a demon lord to help people like this. I answered softly that it was fine, because even if they were human, they still understood the pain of losing a parent. She added that their father, the previous demon lord, had not been accepted when he first took the throne, and that revelation stopped Yuta cold. The dark-haired sister explained that many had condemned him for openly keeping both a legal wife and several companions, while Yuta quietly realized demons were stricter about such things than she expected. I said that in the end, all demons accepted him as demon lord, because they came to understand that he truly cared for every member of his family equally. Holding on to that example, I told Uta to become the kind of demon lord she wanted to be, and the other sister vowed they would believe in her and follow her. Yuta called out to Iwani-chan and Ibiswani-chan as she prepared to mention something she could no longer ignore. Yuta said she had just heard something troubling, and the others instantly turned to listen. She explained that people were saying the monsters in the forest had grown more aggressive, and tied it to the girl whose father had never returned from there. One of Yuta's sisters found that strange because monsters in that area were usually docile, and attacks on people were rare. The group found a uniwolf with its cub, and Yuta's sister recognized it at once. I noted that uniwolves were normally gentle creatures that cared deeply for their families, while Yuta could only focus on how adorable the cub was. After watching them for a moment, the sisters decided this probably was not the monster they were searching for, and moved on to look elsewhere. Then, Yuta all of a sudden heard an ominous sound, and the whole group snapped around in alarm. The parent uniwolf burst into motion without warning, shaking the forest with a violent rush. Yuta realized in shock that the parent was trying to shield its child from something attacking them. A grotesque eye-like mass dropped from above, exposing the true source of the attack. The parent uniwolf all of a sudden twisted into a feral monstrous shape and lashed out with terrifying force. Yuta and her sisters froze as they struggled to understand what kind of nightmare they were seeing. Yuta stared at the creature in disbelief and instantly knew this was nothing like a normal transformation. The creature's sweeping strike tore through the area and sent the sisters scattering to avoid the blow. As they regained their footing, one sister demanded to know what it was, and another admitted she had no answer. The blonde sister said she had never heard of a uniwolf transforming, and concluded that it looked less like a transformation and more like a deformation. The warped beast kept hurling its massive body around, forcing the sisters back and seizing control of the clearing. Yuta watched the destruction and realized the creature's power was far beyond what she had expected. Then Uta spotted the normal parent uniwolf collapse nearby while the monstrous figure stood behind it, revealing they were not the same creature at all. Yuta and her sisters urgently begged Iwani-chan not to hurt them and to find some way to calm the rampaging threat instead. Iwani-chan sensed a sudden strike rushing in from above, realized the danger a heartbeat too late, and tensed in alarm. She raised a hand and instantly moved to intercept, trying to shield the others while tracking the incoming attack. Yuta cried out to Iwani-chan in panic and asked if she was safe after the near miss. Iwan-chan awkwardly admitted she had not handled it alone, then hurriedly tried to cover the moment with embarrassed excuses as the others reacted. The horned woman cut in and warned them to stop fooling around because the next attack was already descending. Knowing there was no time left, the horned woman prepared a spell and declared that the monster from the abyss would be stripped away without a trace. She unleashed all drain across the forest, sending a massive wave of magic at the hidden enemy. The monstrous maw opened wide as the draining force crashed into it, thrashing violently against the spell. The blast ripped through the giant creature's body, and its towering frame twisted as the attack overwhelmed it. Yuta feared that such overwhelming power might kill the creature, but Akino Aikawa calmly assured her there was nothing to fear. Akino Aikawa explained that the draining spell was a succubus technique that Ibis Ni-san had inherited from her mother. Yuta was surprised to learn it was not unique to Ibis Ni-san, because each of the sisters had inherited different techniques from their mothers. Akino Aikawa told Yuta to look, and they saw the uniwolf slowly returning to its senses. Yuta lit up with relief as the recovered uniwolf rose calmly behind her once more. The horned woman relaxed and remarked that the plan seemed to have worked. She explained that Aldrin absorbed both magic and life force, and because the creature's magic had been running wild inside it, she had used the spell hoping to pull that power out cleanly. The horned woman admitted it was her first time seeing a result like this, and the moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult. The uniwolf then used the little magic it had left to send healing energy toward the fallen parent. The horned woman explained that uniwolves normally used recovery magic and were not aggressive, so it was healing the other creature with its remaining strength. Yuta quietly wondered if this incident was connected to the recent rumors about monsters becoming more aggressive. The uniwolf all of a sudden pressed close to Yuta and startled her, while Akeno Aikawa noticed the reaction with quiet interest. As Yuta panicked over what was happening, the horned woman laughed lightly and suggested that this was the creature's way of thanking her. Yuta happily explained that the one who had really restored the father Uniwolf was Ibis-Wani-chan. Akino Aikawa reasoned that Uniwolves were kind and wise, and the horned woman concluded that the child had likely been saved because it heard Yuta begging everyone not to hurt them. The Uniwolf gently stayed by Yuta's side, and she smiled back as the last of the tension softened into trust. Yuta waved them off, and the horned woman called after the Uniwolves to be careful on their way back. Watching the parent and child leave together, the horned woman smiled and praised the Uniwolf as a true demon lord. Yuta stood there with a soft smile as Akeno Aikawa and the horned woman watched, letting the fragile peace settle in. Then the calm was blown apart as a sudden explosive impact tore through the area without warning. Yuta, Akeno Aikawa, and the horned woman froze as the shock of the attack ripped all of their attention away at once. Through the smoke and wreckage, Akeno Aikawa called out to Yuta in alarm as they saw the Uniwolf had been struck down. Yuta stared in horror, unable to understand why something so cruel had happened. A cloaked stranger approached with eerie calm and remarked that the deformed monsters had nearly escaped while he had been suppressing them across the countryside. The hooded man casually announced that he had wiped them out in the end, as if that settled everything. With a smug look, he explained that Uniwolves were vigilant and cunning, and claimed he had only managed to kill them because Yuta and the others had distracted them. Enraged, Yuta charged at him and argued that the creatures had already stopped fighting, demanding to know why he attacked anyway. Before the confrontation could erupt, Akeno Aikawa sharply cut in and ordered Yuta to wait. Akeno Aikawa focused on what she had sensed and revealed that the magic the man had just used was lightning magic. As lightning crackled through the scene, Akeno Aikawa grimly confirmed that only one person in the world should be able to wield lightning magic. Akeno Aikawa finally identified the man and realized with shock that the lightning user before them was the hero, Freed. Yuta went pale as she recognized him too and understood he was tied to both her father and mother's deaths. As Yuta tried to rush straight at Freed, the horned woman chased after her and ordered her to stop. Freed coolly asked whether her name was Uta, while Akeno Aikawa warned that she could not attack him recklessly. Looking at Yuta more closely, Freed remarked that her hair and eyes had made something click in his mind. He noticed the girls behind Yuta and their magic, then concluded that they were the Demon Lord's daughters. With a dark smile, Freed said he understood the situation now and sounded almost delighted by it. Then he burst into wild laughter, and the sound made the entire moment even more unsettling. The horned woman furiously condemned Freed for still being alive after placing his curse on her, while Uta and Akeno Aikawa stared at him in alarm. Freed praised the cruel irony of seeing her face again like this, and his manic laughter rolled beneath the stormy sky. Freed smiled through the lightning and declared that Yuta would die, leaving her frozen where she stood. He lunged straight at Yuta with a lightning-wrapped strike, driving her back before she could even react. Yuta cried out as the blow landed, and her sisters screamed her name when they saw her go down. A violent blast of lightning erupted across the area and swallowed the battlefield in a blinding flash. When the light faded, Freed still stood untouched while one of Yuta's sisters had been thrown away by the impact and the others stared at him in horror. Another sister screamed for Yuta as Yuta cried out in pain, and only then did they realize how severe the damage was. The black-haired sister threw herself forward and caught Yuta, dragging her out of danger as the injury along Yuta's side became clear. Trying to stay calm, the black-haired sister told Yuta to hold on and said she would seal the wound for now to stop the bleeding. Freed looked down at them without emotion, and that cold silence made him seem even more monstrous. Staring at Freed, the black-haired sister trembled at his pitch-black eyes and wondered if he was even human anymore. Freed coldly noted that even while still breathing, Yuta's father had remained nothing more than a man's child to him. As Yuta struggled to rise despite her wound, her sister tried to stop her, but Yuta stared at Freed in shock and realized he was talking about that man. Reeling on the ground, Yuta urgently asked if Freed meant her father. Freed confirmed that her father was the great sage Sol Rhine and dismissively called him the most irritating man he had ever known. With a cruel smile, Freed corrected himself and revealed that Sol Rhine was already dead. He then mocked the absurdity that the great sage's son had ended up standing beside demons. Hurt and furious, Yuta stayed upright only because her sister held her while Freed kept condemning her father for siding with demons. Freed sneered that even someone praised as a saint had been rotten underneath. He concluded without the slightest regret that killing Sol Rhine had been the right decision. Ucha's face twisted in disbelief as she shouted for Freed to say that again. Yuta tried to move through the pain, but her sister urgently held her back, and Freed only watched with quiet amusement. In the next instant, Freed crossed the gap, forced Yuta to the ground, and coldly remarked that someone with such an innocent face should not be among these women. As he studied her, Freed noted how much power Yuta had gained in just a few short years. When dark energy reveled around her, Yuta realized Freed could sense both the white mana she once carried and the black mana now mixed into her as a demon. Yuta glared at him in fury, but Fried restrained her so easily that her resistance meant nothing to him. As Yuta struggled against his hold in pain, Fried calmly called her beautiful, making it all the more disturbing. Fried recognized her as one of the women closest to the Demon Lord, and Yuta instantly demanded to know if he knew her mother. With a knowing smile, Fried admitted that he knew her mother very well. Leaning closer, Fried told Yuta to come with him, as though he were already claiming her. He urged her to abandon her current family and promised he would value her instead, and Yuta went rigid as the strange power inside her reacted. Fried kept Yuta trapped in place, and the crushing pressure left her flushed with pain and humiliation as she fought to endure it. One of Yuta's sisters stepped forward and furiously warned Fried not to touch her sister, while Yuta could only stare in shock. Fried answered with a cold smile and mocked them for protecting a demon, treating their interference as proof enough. As lightning surged around him, Fried declared that he would judge Yuta as a newborn calamity and an enemy of the world. Calling himself the great hero, Fried unleashed a thunder-laced strike and moved to crush Yuta at once. He drove in with his blade, but the attack triggered a violent reaction inside his own body instead. Fried staggered back in disbelief, clutching himself as a searing pain tore through his stomach and cracked his composure. Yuta refused to believe a true hero would act like this, and once the truth hit her, her resolve hardened. With her sisters behind her, Yuta faced Fried head-on, named him her enemy, and declared that as the new Demon King she would defeat him. Fried laughed off their defiance, admitted he had been careless for a moment, and insisted he could never lose to the likes of them. Then Fried froze when he noticed the mark on Yuta and realized she carried the sage's crest. One of Yuta's sisters grimly observed that even Fried had recognized the crest, proving just how abnormal Yuta's power was. Yuta rushed in without hesitation and struck with fierce force, catching Fried off guard with the sudden counterattack. As Fried reeled backward, he recognized the attack wrapped in a black flame-like aura and began to remember something crucial. A sister in the rear shouted in shock that Yuta had reinforced her limbs with black mana. Another sister demanded to know when Yuta had learned that technique, only for Ai to admit she had never taught her anything like it. Ai then remembered that their father had also enchanted his demon sword with magic in battle, and she realized Yuta had figured out the method alone. Watching Yuta stand firm amid the crackling power, they concluded that she truly was a king's vessel and possessed the qualities of a demon lord. Even so, the sisters warned that Yuta was already weakened by the wound Fried had inflicted earlier, and they feared a desperate counterattack. They decided to back Yuta and finish the battle in one coordinated strike before Fried could recover. Fried all of a sudden unleashed a draining spell, and Yuta's sisters cried out as the collapsing stone seized them and pinned them in place. Trapped against the rock walls, the sisters struggled to break free while the spell kept tightening around them. One sister panicked as she felt her strength rapidly draining away. Yuta realized this was a special kind of magic that should have belonged only to Ibis Nissan. Floating between the stone walls, Fried calmly revealed that he was using All Drain. A stunned sister protested that this magic should have been impossible for him to wield. Fried confirmed it and explained that the spell was a Demon Lord technique that normally only Ibis Nissan should have been able to use. Another sister recalled that Ibis Nissan had inherited that art from her mother, making it a treasured heirloom magic. Furious and confused, the sister lunged at Fried and demanded to know why he of all people could use such a power. Fried coldly noted that she could still move and wondered if the draining effect was weaker on someone who used the same magic. Fried said he would reveal one last thing before killing them, and Yuta's sisters froze as an impossible answer began to take shape. Fried revealed dark tendrils and declared that they were Medusa's tentacles, leaving the fallen sister stunned as she recognized the forbidden power. One sister trembled in shock and realized those tentacles should have belonged to her mother alone. Another sister stared at Fried and demanded to know why he also possessed Wani-chan's powers. Fried coldly asked why it mattered and reminded her that he was going to kill them anyway, so hiding the truth meant nothing. He ordered them to look carefully, holding one sister suspended as the others watched in dread. He explained that Yuta's current suffering had to be even worse than when she first received that curse, and the realization struck her hard. As one sister crawled forward and begged him not to kill her sisters, Fried told her to stop and said it would all end in an instant. Fried burst into cruel laughter, savoring her desperation. One sister collapsed as Fried mocked the Demon King for begging for his life, then all of a sudden turned when something else caught his eye. A black-haired girl abruptly struck at Fried and refused to let him continue, while the wounded sister looked back in shock. Fried sneered that he hated her crest just as much as he had hated her father's, and vowed to slowly destroy the hope in her heart while she screamed in agony. A hooded subordinate stepped forward and addressed him as Lord Fried, interrupting the slaughter for a moment. When the subordinate hesitated, Fried said he was at the best part and warned her not to get in his way. The hooded woman apologized and reported that the people of Chikava had noticed the disturbance and were on their way, revealing herself as Azul, an executive officer of Freed Corps. As a sister lay collapsed on the ground, Freed casually remarked that being a hero had its inconveniences, and another sister realized he had allies here too. The horned sister spotted an opening and decided this was her chance to reverse the fight. Believing Freed's guard was down, she charged in with magic and aimed to bring down both him and Azul in one blow. Before she could move, 3 more figures appeared around Freed, including Barakwale Susu, Pola, and Golem, sealing the battlefield. The charging sister froze in disbelief as she realized 3 more enemies had appeared from nowhere, and the trap snapped shut around them. A witch-like subordinate asked Freed what he wanted done with the captives, but he stopped her before she could act. Freed calmly ordered her to leave them alone, and the hooded woman watched as though confirming that choice. Standing beside a collapsed body, Freed declared that he had chosen to let them live because he had thought of something better. When the hooded woman asked if he was certain, Freed said there was no problem and that he could still break their hearts exactly as he wished. With a cold smile, Freed addressed Yuta Rain directly and acknowledged her as the new Demon King. The witch-like follower then told Yuta Rain to survive as long as she could, turning mercy itself into a threat. Bruised and trembling on the ground, Yuta struggled to bear the pain while Freed's laughter drove her humiliation and rage even deeper. Yuta reached out and begged Freed to wait, but he and his followers only looked back while his mocking laughter went on. Desperate, Yuta all of a sudden lunged forward with a cry, forcing her battered body up to chase after him. From farther away, that movement was seen through a window, and Yuta froze in shock as though she had noticed something at last. Yuta woke to chaos as one girl blurted out in shock about Ibis Wanechin's body, while another nearby stared in equal disbelief. Still dazed, Yuta recognized Ibis Wanechin and realized this was no longer the forest, leaving her stunned and confused. Ibis Wanechin noticed Yuta was awake, and the moment takes an uncomfortable turn. The others rushed in as well, one excitedly announcing that Yuta had finally woken up while another admitted they had been terrified because she had slept for more than 2 weeks. Hearing that she had been unconscious for over 2 weeks, Yuta fell silent in shock while Ibis Wanechin watched her with a calm, reassuring smile. The sisters explained that they had sensed Yuta's magic from the forest of Chikava, found everyone collapsed and brought her back before any humans could arrive. Remembering Freed's attack, Yuta anxiously asked what had happened to the wounds she had suffered. The haloed woman explained that this was the demon realm, where black mana naturally aided recovery, though she warned that even that healing had limits and admitted they had truly feared Yuta would never wake up. Overwhelmed by their concern, Yuta softly apologized for making everyone worry. The others told Yuta they were just glad she had come back safely, though one added that she had not escaped completely unharmed, and their relief filled the room. Yuta thanked everyone for saving her, but the pain inside her still would not loosen. Surrounded by her sisters, Yuta admitted that she could not defeat Freed and had failed to even slow him down. She bitterly confessed that even with her sisters at her side, she had been too helpless to protect anyone. The memory crashed over Yuta, and she finally broke down in tears under the weight of that frustration. Far away, the story shifted to the military country Offload. The scene grows awkward with no easy escape. At the palace, Auflulu, the 5th-generation queen of Offload, happily welcomed Freed back and right away asked how the battle had ended. Freed calmly reported that deformed plant and beast monsters had appeared in the forest of Chikava, confirming the threat. Alarmed, Auflulu demanded to know what happened next, while a hooded figure urged her to remain calm. Freed proudly declared that the Fright Corps had wiped out those monsters at once and presented the operation as righteous justice. Auflulu lit up with excitement and proudly declared that this was exactly what she expected from her Freed. She instantly realized she had sounded too possessive, and her flustered reaction exposed her embarrassment. The soldiers loudly praised Freed as a true hero, and the interaction becomes difficult to navigate. Auflulu sincerely told Freed that he had always been dependable, and Freed modestly replied that he had only fulfilled his duty as the hero. Auflulu revealed that Freed had once been her tutor, and after Sage Soul Rhine vanished and her parents died from a mysterious illness, she had been left alone and clung to stories of Freed's heroic deeds for comfort. The hooded figure calmly promised to keep supporting Auflulu in the future, and she quietly accepted that reassurance. Auflulu ordered everyone to prepare a banquet in Freed's honor, but Freed said he needed only rest after the long journey and asked to return to his room instead. Disappointed, Auflulu complained that the main attraction was leaving, and the hooded figure asked her to come closer to the queen. As the hooded figure leaned in and spoke in private, Auflulu froze at the sudden closeness and secretive tone. Shocked by what she heard, Auflulu asked if it was really true, and the hooded figure confirmed it while insisting the matter remain secret for now. Auflulu tried to accept Freed's departure, but the fear never left her face, and she still could not bring herself to let him go. Around them, the women argued over their favorites, some choosing Freed, while others swore Azul's mysterious charm pulled even harder. The hooded woman said nothing, only watched as wave after wave of praise and fascination rolled through the hall. Fried answered with dark satisfaction, admitting that this spectacle pleased him more than it should. Someone near him was rattled that a mere village girl like her could stir such fierce devotion. Fried coldly noted that even after a battle like that, she still had strength left to keep pressing the issue. The hooded woman observed that when it came to him, not even a savage fight changed anything. Then she asked whether Azul wanted to be part of this as well, leaving him confused and quietly shaken by what she meant. The hooded woman added that the attention-starved queen had promised military funds for Fried. She then revealed that Fried had let Demon King Yuta escape in exchange for that reward. Fried stared at a grotesque, twisted being and studied its abnormalities with chilling fascination. With smug certainty, he told himself that as long as no enemy could defeat him, he could remain the world's hero and preserve the balance beneath his rule. Fried added that this power still did not suit ordinary humans with weak vitality, revealing just how far beneath him he believed they were. He casually called for Pola, and the small attendant answered at once. As Fried turned away, Pola grumbled about his habit of prying into things, though she still sneered that another girl disgusted her even more. Pola kept rambling with embarrassing excitement over Fried's harsh behavior, while Azul remained nearby in stiff silence. When she asked why Fried had not gotten angry at her, Pola all of a sudden accused Azul of spying too, and he could only mutter that he did not know. Fried ordered someone to clean him up, while Azul realized that neither the king nor the people of this country had ever seen Hero Fried's true face. Azul concluded that Fried hid behind the mask of a righteous hero and cloaked himself in pure white mana. But beneath that noble image, Azul realized, black mana was alive deep inside Fried. A hooded old man noticed a bird at the window and let out a brief cry of surprise as it hovered outside in the night. Someone in the mansion reacted in confusion, sensing that something unexpected had happened just beyond the walls. The short-haired girl was stunned that Fried was the one involved, but the dark-haired woman calmly said there was no doubt. Even when one girl insisted Fried was supposed to be a hero with only white mana, the dark-haired woman pointed out that he had clearly used both Ibis and Ai's techniques. She admitted she did not know how Fried could wield both kinds of power, but demonic techniques required black mana, proving he possessed it. The injured girl shrank back in disbelief and realized that if Fried truly wielded black mana too, then he was the same kind of being she was. As the girl began to spiral, the dark-haired woman gently reminded her that her wounds still had not healed and warned her not to get worked up. The dark-haired woman pulled the shaken girl close and urged her to sleep for now, trying to quiet the fear building inside her. The injured girl stayed tense on the bed while the dark-haired woman lay beside her, calm on the surface as she waited for her to settle. Even so, the girl's panic kept climbing, and she admitted there was no way she could stop worrying. Yuta bitterly realized that even Fried, the so-called hero, carried that same corrupt trait, and she blamed her own inexperience for losing to someone who wielded both white and black mana. As her sisters kept acting normal around her, Yuta feared that deep down they probably looked down on her the same way. Then her thoughts all of a sudden twisted, and a troubling idea flashed through her mind, leaving her frozen. Panicking, Yuta protested that she truly could not go through with that, then nervously recalled reading that such matters were only for adults and admitted she still was not mentally ready. The dark-haired elf woman held her by the shoulders and firmly urged her to face it, pushing Yuta into even deeper embarrassment and pressure.